Shalom, shalom. Can you hear me? Good. I need one of these at home for my children. We're going to talk about love. You like love? Do you love love? All right. Well, we're going to talk about all kinds of love. Love between husband and wife. Love between parents and children. Love between friends and friends. And maybe the hardest one, loving ourselves. And we're going to do all that in a very short amount of time, but at least it's a beginning. So I'm sitting with my wife one night. I turn to my wife, Chana. I say, Chana, why do you love me? She said, why do you assume that? I said, well, let's just assume that. Just for, just assumption-wise. And she said, I have no reason to love you. Oy. I said, you can't find one reason to love me? I mean, just one? What about my humor? That's the worst one. I said, you don't have a reason to love me? She said, not only do I have no reason to love you, you wouldn't want me to have a reason to love you. I said, no, I think I would. She says, no, you wouldn't. Because if I had a reason to love you, it would be the reason I love and not you. And if that reason were no longer relevant, what would happen to my love? I love you for no reason. And I love you even when you give me reasons not to love you. And I do give her reasons not to love me, just to test her, right? So I want to talk about loving for no reason. Loving ourselves for no reason. Loving each other for no reason. Loving our children, our parents, our spouses for no reason. And I want to share a very powerful, for me it was a life-changing thought, rooted in, drawn from the teachings of the Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the secrets of Judaism. It's not a separate tradition. It is Judaism, but it goes to the whys and the deep, deep kind of structure and science of Judaism. So let me tell you a kind of Kabbalistic story. And based on this story, we're going to identify 3 ingredients to all loving relationships. And I'll give examples from different kinds of relationships, but these principles are applicable to every kind of relationship, even with yourself. So the first thing is, the Kabbalah teaches that in the beginning, all of existence was an endless light. An endless light. When the divine, when God wanted to create you and me, he caused a withdrawal from the center of his light, creating a spherical vacuum. Now that's an impressive circle. I've been doing this for 40 years. That's a good circle. That's my biggest talent, okay? Creating a spherical vacuum. In this vacuum, the Kabbalah teaches that God produced vessels. Vessels are very different than the light. They're other than the light. The light is unlimited. The vessels are limited. It then says that God projected a thin ray of his endless light into the vessels. But the vessels couldn't take the light, and they exploded. Went into the next vessel and exploded. And all the vessels exploded. This is my favorite part. All the vessels exploded. I'm very good at drawing chaos. All the vessels exploded and went into chaos. The continuation of the story is called tikkun, to fix these broken vessels so that we can receive this light. Now, I know this all sounds kind of very mystical, but what I've actually drawn here is a picture of all loving relationships, right? All loving relationships, all right? We're going to identify the 4 ingredients to all loving relationships. The first ingredient is the art of making space. In the beginning, there was just God. God, so to speak, pulled out of the way, created a space, so to speak, within himself for other than God. Same thing in our lives. As children, babies, we think we're the world. We're all there is, I remember when we were carrying our first child, when my wife was pregnant, and the doctor said that, he's concerned about her calcium level, so we have to work on that. And my wife said, oh, good, whatever. I wouldn't want to do anything that would be harmful to the baby. So, oh, no, I'm not worried about the baby. Babies are the most egotistical creatures in the world. That baby will suck every single ounce of calcium out of your body until your bones rot, right? I'm not worried about the baby. Babies, I'm the world. I'm all there is. You know what it means to grow up? It's hard. It's to move yourself out of the center and create a space for other than yourself, okay? The first step is creating space. If you're self-centered, if you have to be in the center, you can't have a relationship. You have to move yourself out of the center and create space. The second is you're creating space for someone who's other than you, very different than you. The light and the vessels are very different. The light is limited. The light is unlimited. The vessels are limited, right? Vessels are vessels. Light is expanding. And we're going to go through the 4 in a second. I'm just going to give you all 4, and then we're going to go back over them. So first step is learning to create space in your life for somebody other than you. The second is to create space in your life for someone who is other than you. Respect their otherness. Nurture their otherness. Support their otherness. They're not you. The third step is this light over here, this ray of light, is giving of yourself to other. That's what the Kabbalah says. God gave himself over to the other. Why it broke, we'll have to talk about that in my upcoming class later on today. But everything broke down. And in this space, in this story of love, is chaos, breakdown, limitations, imperfections. You're creating space for all of that too. The last step, which I have not drawn on the board here, which is called tikkun, is to allow the other in your life, whether it's your children, your spouse, your friend, or the other you that you're dealing with, right? To be able to do the 3 steps for you. To create space in their life for you. Sometimes this is the hardest thing, to let people love us. Sometimes it's easier to love than to be loved. So those are the 4 steps. Creating space in your life, moving out of the center, creating a space for someone other than you. By the way, that's what's called a hug. What are you doing when you're hugging someone? You're creating a space in yourself for somebody else. But you have to create that space in a way that when you hug them, you don't pin their arms down. You enable them to create a space in their life to include you. So creating space, honoring, respecting, supporting, nurturing other than you, giving of yourself to other, and allowing other to all that for you. So let's give examples of that, right? Let's give examples for that. Let's talk about the first one, creating space, getting out of the way. Getting out of the way. I remember I once saw a film called Kramer versus Kramer. It was a film about a divorce. The fellow comes home, he's very, very excited about his day at work. A lot of exciting, successful things are happening. He comes home, he's raving about his day. His wife turns to him and says, "I'm leaving you." He says, "No problem." And he continues to rave about his day and how wonderful. He doesn't even hear her, right? "I'm going, right? We're done." And he doesn't even hear her. Until finally she puts the key of the house on the table, the counter of the kitchen, and she gets in her car, and he's still talking, doesn't even notice that she left the room. And then he sees her in the car and says, "Hey, where are you going?" She says, "I'm getting divorced." He was so full of himself. You can't be in a relationship when you're full of yourself. You have to create space in your life for a relationship. And your relationships have to be the one and most important priority in your life, right? If we really want to succeed, because relationships take that kind of space, you have to move out of the way. You have to create the space in your life, the time in your life for someone other than you. And it's creating a space for someone who's other than you. And that's really hard. It's hard for us to even believe there's somebody other than us and how other they are. I know for myself, when I was dating, it was very difficult because people knew that I was Rabbi David Aaron. Public speaker, can get in front of a lot of people. But what people don't know about me is I'm actually a very quiet guy. You probably won't believe this, right? When I'm up here, I've got lots to say. When I'm down there, I'm a very quiet guy, right? And so I'm kind of like an introvert, extrovert. So all the girls I go out with, they were told, this is Rabbi David Aaron, he's a public speaker. I'd come to the date, I'd have nothing to say. I was very, very quiet. Very quiet. Girls, I got a bad name. He wasn't so nice. He didn't speak that much. He probably didn't like me. But when I met my wife, right, the first date, she spoke the entire evening. I didn't say much at all. Second date, she speaks the entire evening. I don't say much at all. Third date, she's still talking. I haven't said much at all. Fourth date, I say to her, you know, Hannah, we've gone out. This is our fourth time. And I really haven't said much at all, you know. You've just been talking. I said, does that bother you? She said, no, I'm deaf. No, God forbid. She said, no, it doesn't. I said, why? She said, because I believe that I should just give you the space to be who you are. And when you'll be ready to talk, you'll talk. I haven't stopped since, right? She created space for other. I was other than she thought I would be. She was other than everybody expected me to be. That's a relationship. I create space, but I create space for someone who's other than my dreams, other than my expectations, other than I want you to be. I want you to be you, and I love you for that. So, actually, before I met my wife, I was dating a woman. We ended up getting engaged. And, well, it was Saturday night. That Shabbat was a very rainy Shabbat, and my suit got wet. So I had a suit that I never wore. It was a black suit that at the time I never wore black suits. I happened to have it. And it was raining, so I have a black hat, which I don't wear that much, and I never wore it at one of our dates. And then Saturday night, I went to meet my fiancée, but I was wearing this black suit and a black hat. She opened the door. She said, oh, just the way I always pictured you. Always pictured me? What do you mean always pictured me? And suddenly it hit me that this woman was cheating on me. The whole time we were dating, she was seeing another man, and I was the other man, the man of her dreams. She had projected her fantasies on me, right? The same thing with our children. We've got fantasies of who our children are, or who our parents should be, or who our friends should be. That's not love, right? Love means getting out of the way, creating space for someone who's other than you. But it's hard for people to understand that people could be other than them. You know, I was at something called handwriting analyst and drawing analysis. My wife does this. So there were three of us at the table, and part of the drawing analysis is to draw a tree on the back of the page. So I drew my tree, and these two other guys, they draw their tree. One guy drew this tiny little tree in the upper left corner of the page. The guy next to him drew this huge tree that took up the entire page. Well, now something very funny happens. We'll call him Mr. Big Tree. Turns over, and I see he's looking at little shrub. And he's having a hard time. Finally, he couldn't hold himself back. He wants to be kind. He says, excuse me, I hope you don't think I'm intruding. You know when someone says that, that means they are. Right? I hope you don't mind I'm intruding. But you got it all wrong. The guy says, I got it all wrong? He said, yeah, you got it all wrong. You didn't read the instructions. I didn't? No, it's clear. It says, draw a tree on the back of the page. You didn't do that. He said, I didn't? No. First of all, that's not a tree. You call that a tree? That's a shrub, right? Second of all, that's not the back of the page. That's the upper left corner of the page. He wants a tree like mine. And he flashes him his tree. He says, this is what he wants. So poor little shrub starts rubbing out his tree, trying to draw a tree like the other guy. And the whole time I'm cracking up laughing because they're both wrong. My tree was the right tree. Try that with your family. Get everybody to draw a tree on the back of the page, and you'll discover how other we are. You'll be surprised by people's trees. Well, you'll be surprised by more than just their trees. We're all creating the image of God. The image of God is uncomparable. Nobody's like God. Nobody's like you. If you're created in the image of God, means you're created in the image of uniqueness. We'll spell that Y-O-U. Uniqueness. Right? You're unique. And if you want to be in a relationship, then you have to embrace that people are different and love them. Right? Now, we all know love your neighbor as yourself. But that doesn't mean love your neighbor as yourself. Love them the way you want to be loved. It means love your neighbor as yourself just like you would love to be loved the way you need to be loved. Find out the way they need to be loved. Right? I have a friend who was in an accident, is paralyzed. He's not able to feed himself. He told me something amazing. He said when people feed him, he has to remind them to give him the cooked vegetables. Because they don't like cooked vegetables, they don't feed him the cooked vegetables. And when he says to them, could I have some of the cooked vegetables? With hesitation, they give it to him, but they don't go back to it. And he has to ask him again, but can I have some more of those cooked vegetables? It's such an interesting thing. We so assume that what we like and what we need and how we need to hear I love you is the way our children need it, our friends need it, our spouse need it. But we need to learn their love language because everybody has a different love language. There was a couple that met in one of my programs, and they got married very quickly, but unfortunately they didn't realize how very different they were. And very quickly they were having a serious marital problem. So they came to me, the rabbi. You know, people think for some strange reason that rabbis can answer all questions in all areas of life, and that's ridiculous. It's only true in my case. But other than that, I don't know why would I be an expert on marriage? But anyways, they start talking to me about that. So I've got this idea. I take him aside and I say, do me a favor, tell me, point to one thing about her that bugs you. He says, I write these little notes, these little love notes, and I see she doesn't appreciate it. I'm surprised. That's what he comes up with. They're on the verge of a divorce. That's what's on his mind. All right, I take her aside privately. I say, well, tell me, what bugs you? She says, I buy him these beautiful gifts. I'm in the shopping mall. I see this great sports jacket. I don't think twice. I charge it to my husband. I take it home. And he gets home and he sees on the bed this beautiful gift-wrapped gift, and I see he just doesn't appreciate it. That's what came to your mind? Okay. I'm thinking about this, and I realized, you know what? I take him aside quietly. I say, tell me, when you were growing up, did you get a lot of big gifts? I said, oh, all the time. My parents would just give me all these big gifts, but they were never really there. You know, they were never really there. Oh, okay. I went to her privately. I said, tell me, when you were a little kid, did you get a lot of little love notes? She said, all the time. My parents would leave these sweet, warm notes, but they weren't around. Phantom mom and dad. They were just notes. I realized, you know what's going on here? She's giving him what she wants him to give her. And he's giving her what he wants her to be giving him. We all do this. We somehow assume that the way I need someone to say and show they love me is the way everybody needs to know that that's how they need to be loved. You have to figure out what's the unique love language of your children, of your parents, of your spouse, of your friends. And maybe also, not just maybe, for sure, what's the love language you have to give to yourself? Right? What's the love language you have to give to yourself? This is the same thing. How to love yourself. Create a space for yourself in your life. There are people who have no time for themselves. No time for themselves. Create a space in your life for you. It's so hard these days. You know, when I was a kid, and it wasn't so long ago, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have programs on demand. So there were times where there was no way I could distract myself. I had to be with myself. Right? If I got into some, tense moment with my parents or friends, I had nowhere to run. Right? I didn't have a smartphone that I could just take out and get distracted. I had to think. I had to contemplate. I had to be with myself. We need to create space in our life for ourselves, but for ourselves other than we thought we'd be, other than we dreamed we'd be, other than our parents told us we'd be. Create a space in your life for the other you. Again, same application. Create space and respect otherness. Other than you dreamed of, other than you're used to, other than you hoped for. Other. Very other. I had a sad situation. A friend of mine who was not married, already in his 50s, he was visiting in Jerusalem for an international singles weekend. Now, you know, I'm actually, one of my little hobbies is matchmaking. I love to mess people's lives. And so I said, I'd like to go. I'd like to see what they're doing at this event. So we got to this event at a hotel. There's a woman sitting there in the lobby. She also looks like she's in her 50s. He comes up to her and says, excuse me, is this where the international singles event is happening? She looks at him with disgust, a perfect stranger. She says, well, you're late. You're late? He said, I'm not late, right? Right? And they started yelling at each other. And I realized, oh my gosh, she's not seeing who he is. So create space for someone other than yourself. The next step is give of yourself to other. Be there for somebody. That's the greatest gift you can give somebody. It's called presence. Be there. Listen to them. Be in their lives. You know, I do a lot of traveling. I try to stay away from home not too long, right? I don't want to miss my home for more than a Shabbat. It's very hard. But there was one particular event that I was away for 2 weeks, and I missed 2 Shabbats with my family. When I came home, I turned to my children. I said, you know, I feel bad. I was away for a long time. Thank God my wife and I are blessed with 7 children. And so I turned to the children. I said, you know, kids, I want to do something special. I'm going to take you all out to dinner, right? Kids seem to be very receptive about that. We're walking out of the old city of Jerusalem where I live. I turned to my children. I said, kids, what do you want? Italian or Chinese? My son, 5 years old, without a beat, he said, I want you. Yeah. My kid wanted to eat me. Freaked me out. Freaked me out. And I realized, my gosh, my kid doesn't want an egg roll. My kid doesn't want a slice of pizza. He wants time with me. That's your greatest gift to each other. Give each other time. People have no time. Have no time. Have no time. That's the most important gift, right? I have a friend, son was chosen to put the mezuzah on the new wing of the school. Mother calls her husband, honey, this is unbelievable, right? Father says, you know, honey, sweetheart, you know, we're in the middle of some big deals. I can't make it. But you know what? I'm going to get him that bicycle. I know he'll be happier with the bicycle. I mean, there, you'll get pictures you can show me on FaceTime. I'll get him that bicycle he wants. You think that kid wants that bicycle? Well, I know his father. The kid did want the bicycle. No, the kid doesn't want a bicycle. You see, that's really sad, that we think toys are us. And we can give them toys. But that's not what they want. They want time with us. Your spouse wants time with you. Your children wants time with you. Right? Your friends want time with you. And you need time with yourself. Right? So you have to be there. Be present. Be in the moment with somebody. Share that time. Share that time together. Right? Last point is allow people to do the 3 for you. Let them make space for you. That's called intimacy. Intimacy is into me, see. See into me. Allow people to see into you. Be vulnerable. Allow them to love you. Include your problems. That's what love is. That's what love is. You create a space for somebody else in your life. That's what I've experienced, thank God, in my life. But that's what we can do. We can give to other people. I once thought, if I had to make a difficult choice, to love or to be loved, and I couldn't have both, which would I choose? Think about that question. I think we would all choose, even though our first thing was to say we want to be loved. But I think in the deepest depths, we want to love. And nobody stops you from that. We can wait around and hope that someone's going to come along and love us. But there's so many people out there, no lack of people. And that's our choice. We can go out and love them. Create a space in your life. Allow people to love you, you know. See, that's what it means. I mean, you know, to get love from the world Yeah, people can love me. Why not? They don't know my problems. They don't know my dark side. My children, my wife, they know my dark side. They know who I am, right? That's why I'm here. My wife threw me out of the house. No. But that's real love. I create a space for someone who's other than me, someone who's imperfect, someone who has chaos. I give of myself to them. I'm there for them. I support them. I respect them. I accept them. And I give myself to them. And I allow them to give themselves to me. Thank you very much. So now we have time for questions, which is my favorite part. So we have a microphone, and you can ask me questions. So who would like to ask a question? Kind of takes a little courage to create space in your life to make a question. Yes. What's your name? Stand up. Can we get the mic over here quickly? Thank you very much. Right over here. What's your name? Linda? Wow, I heard that. Yes.
Thank you for what you shared. I have a year off not working this year, and my challenge and opportunity is to learn to love myself. So how would you say I would best go about that?
Okay, how to love yourself. You know, I realized this when my first child got married, and I saw how it was kind of easy for her to leave the house. It was so hard for me. And as much as I'm sure my children love me, I love them more because they didn't do for me as I've done for them. I've invested in them. They don't remember the time that we had to rush them to the hospital or where, so you connect through giving and giving. And children, they don't have an opportunity really so much to give to their parents. Parents are giving and giving, and when you give to somebody, you connect to them. I know my parents, when I was growing up, they would always say, we want nachas. We want nachas. I never knew what they meant. And that was in Los Angeles, and I saw a restaurant called Taco Bell, which is a restaurant. And on the front it said, nachos, I said, that's what they want. I sent them FedEx, hot nachos. But what can I give my parents? What did I do for my parents, But they do so much for us. So what we need to do to love ourselves is we have to take care of ourselves. We have to be kind to ourselves. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to exercise, eat well. People who live a disciplined life will love themselves more. Sometimes when we're feeling down and depressed, we say, I'm just going to do whatever I feel. I'm going to go treat myself. But very often that doesn't really deliver because do good for yourself. Ask yourself. I have students that are 18, and I say, are you doing things that you wouldn't want your children to be doing? They say, oh, yeah. I said, then you don't love yourself, right? Don't do something you wouldn't want your children to do, right? Take care of yourself. Do good. And so loving yourself is not an emotion. It's an action. In our tradition, love is an action. You take action to create space. You take action and in a very active way show respect and accommodate people being other than you. Take action and be present. Do the same for yourself. Create a space in your life and acknowledge I'm other than I thought I'd be. I'm other than the dreams. I'm not perfect. And then be there for yourself. Be kind. And ask yourself, what good could I do for me? Do something kind to yourself. And the more you are kind to others, the more kind you are to self, the more connected you are to others, the more connected you will be with yourself. More questions. Thank you very much, Linda, for that question. More questions. Come on. Yes. Yeah. What's your name?
My name's Aviela.
Ariella.
Aviela.
Aviella.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much for everything that you've shared. But my question is, so I'm a teenager, and I obviously don't know my whole self yet. And how can I go about loving myself when I don't know who I am?
Okay. You don't need to know who you are to love yourself. You have to just be kind to yourself, In other words, I'm sure you make mistakes sometimes. We all make mistakes. What do you then say in your head? What do you say? Aviela, you're such an idiot? Not allowed to say that. Not allowed to say that, right? Not allowed to say that. You've made a mistake. Acknowledge, okay, I made a mistake. But I'm going to choose to get up and do better next time. But be kind. The first thing is, people say such nasty things to themselves, things they would never want anybody in the world to say to themselves. And we could say such horrible things to ourselves, about ourselves. And the sad thing is, wherever we are, there we are. I mean, a friend we can get rid of. We are with ourselves. We need to practice self-compassion. We know the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself. But very few realize that that's predicated on loving yourself. I know a lot of people that I prefer don't love me the way you love yourself. Please, love me a little better, right? So you have an obligation to love yourself and treat yourself kindly. And ask yourself, is this good for me? Is this healthy for me? Is this respectful towards myself? I had a student, and she dressed in the most ragged way. She wore what in Yiddish is called, it's actually a French designer called schmate, right? Schmatas. She was schmatas, drags and ripped clothing, and everything is ripped, right? And I'm never like this. I'm really not that kind of a person. But I took her aside, and very gently I said, why do you dress with schmatas? Why do you do that? She says, because I like it. And the girl could afford, nice clothing. And this was before ripped clothing was considered to be classy, right? And I said, you know what, honestly, I think the reason why you wear ripped clothing, she had a T-shirt, ripped all over, messy. I said, I think you wear that T-shirt because you identify with that T-shirt, right? And maybe you deserve to dress better, right? She was really challenged by what I said. And the next day, she didn't come wearing that T-shirt. She wore armor. No, I'm just joking. But, yeah, so treat yourself well. Dress nicely. Don't get too crazy about it. Dress nicely. Exercise. Eat healthy. Speak kindly. And do kindness toward yourself. When you like yourself, it'll be so much easier to like everybody else. But when we don't like ourselves, we think everybody else doesn't like us, right? And one of the things I learned is self-worth is not a democratic vote. You can get the whole world to say you're great. If you can't say it to yourself, literally look yourself in the face, in the mirror, and say, I love you, I care about you. I know you're not perfect, right? But that's okay. I remember when I was dating my wife, and I said to her, I want to tell you something. I'm a deep guy, right? You don't start teaching this kind of stuff. But I'm a deep guy because I've had a lot of challenges in my life, right? And, I just want you to know that about me. And she said that, I said, does that worry you? She said, no. I said, why not? She said, because this is our last date. No, she didn't say that. I said, why? She said, because I believe a relationship is work. And I want a relationship that I can work at. And you look like a piece of work. And I said, I am. And I am, right? I am. So take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, speak kindly to yourself, and do good for yourself, and you will for sure do good for others. Is there time for one more question? Is there another question? Where are you? Yes, please. What's your name? Could we get the... Why I didn't bring my wife. Right. Well, the truth is that I don't have a wife. I was just making up all these stories. Right. As rabbis, there's a rent-a-wife program that you can have so that people can think that you're married. No. Why didn't I bring my wife? It was actually a struggle. It was really a struggle. We thought about it. Sometimes she does travel with me, but we decided this time not. I'm not sure if it was a good idea or not for both of us, but thank God we're married and we have a great relationship. But I want you to know, we work at our relationship. A relationship that you don't work at doesn't work. And just know that. What they've shown you in the films rarely happens. I remember a film when I was a kid called Love Story. These films always have some deep message. So the deep message is love means never saying sorry. And it became on the Valentine cards, and love means never saying sorry. The stupidest thing I ever heard in my life, right? Love means saying sorry because the people you love the most are most likely the people that you'll probably maybe even hurt the most. Because the closer you are to someone, the greater chance that you will step on their toes, okay? And so you say sorry. So thank God we've got a great marriage. In fact, I'll leave you with one story. The morning after our wedding, we met a stranger on the street. And he said, I'm sorry I wasn't at your wedding last night. Well, I was happy. I had no clue who he was. But, you know, what do you say to them? I'm glad you weren't there. I said, oh, well, sorry you couldn't make it. He said, but I'd really like to give you a gift. I said, okay. Oh, really sorry you couldn't make it. I want to give you some advice. Talk is cheap. Okay. What's your advice? He said, never go to bed on an argument. Always make sure that you go to bed with peace, right? And we thought, what a cynic. We two lovebirds flying down the street the morning after our wedding. And he tells us never to fight beyond the night. Make peace and never go to sleep without peace, right? Well, that night I think we argued about who that guy was and who didn't invite him. But I want you to know, married for over 36 years. Not to the same woman. No, I'm just joking, right? Married over 36 years. We have a rule, right? We never go to bed without making sure there's peace. If there's some harsh feelings, some mistake, whatever it is, we would make sure that we don't go to bed without having peace. And I haven't slept in 36 years. Thank you very much. Shalom.